On the next Prairie Sportsman, we trudged through the snow to go grouse hunting in Beltrami Island State Forest. And we learned about the restoration of Lake Redwood. And we'll join Nicole Zempel for a fast forage.
Welcome to Prairie Sportsman. I'm Brett Amundson, trying to show you all the outdoor opportunities Minnesota has to offer, along with all the conservation, science, and management behind those opportunities. We got another great show for you. Here's what it's all about.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Live Wide Open. Western Minnesota Prairie Waters. And the members of Pioneer PBS.
It can be argued that, among hunters, the Minnesota state bird is wrongly chosen. While the lonesome call of the loon echoing across a northern Minnesota lake is iconic, there may be no bird more revered in the North Woods than the quirky ruffed grouse. The ruffed grouse is a favorite among upland hunters for a variety of reasons. The challenge: grouse hunting can be, well, easy at times, but most diehard grouse hunters head deep into the thickest parts of the woods, where even if a bird flushes, it's usually flying safely, hidden among the branches of the dense forest. The taste: if you're fortunate enough to tuck a ruffed grouse into your game bag, they're considered the greatest table fare of all the upland game birds. But ask any veteran of young aspen thickets, and they'll tell you that they're just as happy seeing or hearing the birds flush as they are when they pull the trigger.
When you go out, especially with the Pierce, it's measured in flushes. It's not what you shoot, it's what you flush and what you saw that day. Whether you saw anything or you just enjoyed a stroll in the woods. Just shooting the bird is kind of a bonus, I guess. But yeah, grouse hunters they're a little bit different.
Jared Olofsson is the co-chair of the Lake of the Woods chapter of the Ruffed Grouse Society. We'd be hunting with him, Chuck Lindner, and Joe Henry in the Beltrami Island State Forest, just south of War Road. What is this trail right here? What are we expecting?
Hopefully we find some grouse. It runs for about 8 miles straight, down and back. Cuts through a lot of diverse cover, so hoping there's some grouse for us on there.
All right, well, it's nice and wide. We're going to bring Tiny, and I don't know, I'm going to bring Mika along. She's a little beat up, but if this is a pretty easy walking trail.
Pretty easy, yep.
We got a little bit of snow to deal with, but let's go see if we can find some birds.
Sounds good. The walking trails have been around for a long time. In the last 10 years or so, we've done a big push to further develop those trails, expand that trail system a lot more. So in the last 10 years, we've really been busy with it.
So we're coming up on another gate here. Yep. Is this another access to get onto these, or is it just gates?
Another access point to get onto it. So there's ATV trails that run through, and then once in a while our grouse trails intersect those, so there's multiple jump on and jump off points.
And the grouse trails is non-motorized?
Correct.
They don't open up for snowmobiles or anything?
Nope.
How you doing, old lady?
You're doing good, aren't you? I like what RGS does. I've always been a grouse hunter, and RGS, especially the local chapter, they give back to this area a lot, so it seemed like a good organization to join. Like this would be decent in here with, you got your aspens, your little transition zone.
Well, maybe I'll cut in with the dog a little bit.
Yeah, do a big swoop up in there and see what you can see. There is rough grouse, spruce grouse, and sharptail. Sharptail, obviously a little tougher to get. There is some isolated pockets in the woods, but they've kind of migrated towards that egg land. Spruce grouse is one of those bucket list grouse. And then rough grouse, they're everywhere out here. You know, it'd probably be Brett's luck if right now a spruce grouse steps out right in front of us on the path.
This is a big, wild country. Obviously, good rough grouse habitat. Having some accessibility, like these hunter walking trails and some of these other roads and paths that run through these trees, really open up this area for guys that want to go hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. There's campgrounds that are all accessible pretty much by any type of vehicle. And then you have old logging roads that you can still get down with a Jeep. You have ATV specific trails, some side-by-side specific trails, and then you have hunter walking trails.
And how we work with the local community and anybody that's interested, it's a great way to memorialize someone that hunted Beltrami, loved Beltrami. So they'll work with us, we'll pick out that nice location for a hunter walking trail. We can usually do about a mile of trail for around $1,500 now. And it's all volunteer labor, it's all rented equipment. We'll come in with our crew, get some high school kids to help, we'll do all of the work and present that family with a nice memento of all the work that was done on their trail. So they can, a little piece of history that they can keep with them.
It was hilarious.
Remember that?
I do well. He looks like he might be a little birdie. Good boy. Well, before we have snow, in the earlier part we'll see woodcock and some of these alders. There's some low areas in here. Good boy. We're up here on the Canadian border, kind of on the northern fringe of woodcock habitat, some excellent rough grouse habitat. And we as a chapter, we were lucky to have a great relationship with the DNR and start to do some habitat projects and more specifically some hunter walking trails. Those trails have flourished into what we call the Star of the North Trail. When that's all networked together, it'll be over 70 miles of hunter walking trail.
Wow.
Some of it is ATV friendly. We try to be, pedestrian, if people want to hike it, if people want to bike it. Obviously it'd be more of an off-road bike. We try to keep it well groomed and manicured. But we've been lucky to have that relationship, create, good habitat projects, and even like where we're standing right now, you see some older stuff with some younger stuff. We're on a trail. This is prime rough grouse habitat, and I would certainly give a shout out to how well our forests are managed up here.
One of the things that you guys are talking about is how the birds, when it snows, will spend so much more time in the trees. So you really do have to look up a lot, don't you? And look for the trees.
Absolutely, you do. My advice is we start moving back to the vehicle. I'm not super encouraged by this. We could go through these pines and see if we bust something through that.
After hearing a few flushes earlier in the day, I finally got to see a grouse.
Dang it. Well, there's our bird. Well, one just flushed right here.
I thought I heard it come my way.
Yeah, it flew back, straight back that way.
Oh, is that what it did?
Yeah. I don't know if he moved at all, but he was sitting right on the edge of it right here.
You want to try to go back for him?
I mean, hard to say how far he went. I lost him after he got into the trees right here, but I mean, it's a bird.
Yep.
Usually I chase roosters when I see them like that.
Yeah, let's do it then.
Okay.
After discussing it with Chuck, we decided to turn around and go back after it.
There it is. I did not hit it. I did not. He flew back the other way now. Well, hey, we found him. It was one of those quick shots you take at a grouse sometimes in the thick woods, but
If you blink, you'll miss it.
got to pull the trigger. Saw him fly that way. We'll chase him back that way.
Now, to me, this is where they might go to roost at night. But eat these buds. Who knows? They could be in this lowland brush too.
Even when the hunting is tough, the North Woods provides.
Ooh. I see a piece of chaga. Try not to make this an ER visit. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Chaga is a fungus commonly found on birch and other trees. It resembles burnt charcoal and is considered medicinal by a lot of people, with most grating it into a fine powder and brewing it like tea.
Good boy, let him up. Oh, I heard one. Right there it is.
Got to our right, huh?
It's right, yeah, it went
I
through.
didn't see it.
Barely went through this opening.
Where'd it get up from?
I think it was in one of these pine trees.
Okay, so it could be another one in there, right?
Dogs, you know, it's funny, dogs figure it out too, right? It's always a different game for them as they find out what that habitat is that they like. They start to hone in on that themselves.
Well, let's face it, this year's been a banner year for grouse up here.
Yes.
It's tougher when it snows, obviously, and we hit it a little bit late. Like they said, you should have been here 10 days ago when there is no snow. But hey, we got our plans made, so we're still after it, and it's still fun, you know?
It is fun, and yes, there's less activity in the forest. It's still pre-deer season.
But I mean, if you stop here and just look at the pines, look at the snow on the pine, this is like a Christmas photo, like a Christmas card.
100%.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? There's a squirrel going back there.
Oh.
Hey, you think you could put a trail in here quick? I don't think I hit him, but I did. He'd be right around here. Dang, that was wild. You know, we're right about at the end of the day here. Chuck just put a bird up over there. I heard him yell, and that thing came ripping through these pines, dipping and diving sideways. And I took a kind of a Hail Mary shot, because that's about all you get in here.
I walked by it and I turned and I saw it get up and flush all at one moment. It was about 12 feet up I almost was able to get my gun up.
Yeah, I can't. All of a sudden I heard him yelling. I'm like, oh, and I look, and he's like,
It's so
I was
cool.
like, kapow!
It's so cool when you see them doing their thing, their heads are up.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the pictures, like he came like this and then banked, so it was just like belly and wings, and you know, like
Like a
what you see.
fighter pilot.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man, it's been a wild experience out here chasing rough grouse around, and you know, maybe even some spruces in there too. And Dan didn't get a chance to hunt this time. He was working hard behind the camera. We walked through some thick stuff. I'm not jealous of him having to be the camera guy on this hunt. It was a tough one out there, but guys, this is some really nice habitat out here.
It really is, and diverse. We saw some birds. Unfortunately, we didn't connect, but the last one was probably the most exciting one.
You know, as most rough grouse hunters will tell you, it's more about the flushes than the shooting anyway. And I don't know, we put up a dozen birds or so, plus a woodcock, so it was
Absolutely,
fun.
it was a good day. It really was. And anytime you can be in the woods exercising and enjoying what northern Minnesota has to offer, it's a great day.
So it's been an important lake to the community, to the history, and the growth of Redwood Falls.
They grow out of wounds of trees, usually elm trees.
We're standing on the shore of Redwood Reservoir, which has gone through this amazing transformation.
Back in the 50s and 60s, this was a very popular lake. There would be a lot of boats out here, a lot of fishing and a lot of skiing and kayaking, canoeing.
Back in 1963, the city of Redwood Falls had a centennial, and they had a huge celebration, and there's a lot of pictures of a water ski team. They had done a pyramid, and there was like boat jumping off of ramps, and just a fun celebration. That is when a lot of the attention was brought to the accumulating sediment in the reservoir.
I had a boat with a Ford V8 engine in it. We wanted to see how many skiers it would pull, and the record was 6. That would have been, I believe, in 1986. We managed to get 6 people up behind it. It was myself, one of my other brothers, and then 4 friends that were the skiers. That was about the last hurrah. The boat, by early 90s, it was no longer, you couldn't use it in here.
That sediment just kept accumulating, and it got to the point where it basically choked out the lake.
It's a man-made lake, and I think it was made in 1902, and they put the dam in for a grist mill.
In 1919, I believe, was the first. We put a hydroelectric portion on the dam to produce power. So it's been an important lake to the community, to the history, and the growth of Redwood Falls.
When we think about how streams function, we're talking about transporting water and sediment. When we put a dam in place, sediment is not able to continue moving, but water is.
It was basically just functioning as a river. It was just a mud bog. Basically, there was 2 islands out there and then 2 peninsulas on the upper end. So really, there was hardly any recreation. It wasn't enjoyed. It was ugly to look at. It would turn green and get mossy in the late summers. So it was real important to bring that back to life. When the Redwood Cottonwoods Rivers Control Area, which is an 8-county organization, it's 8 counties and 8 soil and water conservation districts, they began in 1983, and the dredging of Lake Redwood was one of the founding premises for that organization to get that done.
When it was filling in about a foot and a half a year, it really didn't make any sense to dredge it down 20 feet because you do the math, you got about 20, 30 years, and you're right back where you started. Working with the landowners upstream, they're basically the people that made this possible by their putting in waterways, terraces, sediment control basins, fixing ravines that were started on their property, to conservation tillage. All those things work together to reduce the amount of sediment that was coming to the reservoir and filling it up.
Anytime you can slow down infiltration from 1.5 feet to 1.5 inches in a year is a massive change.
At that point in time, you take something from 20 years out to 75, maybe 100, 150 before you'd have to, we'd be back to what we had before.
Back in 2008, there was a small bonding appropriation made. I think it was only about $1.5 million, but when the bids came in, it needed to be about a $4 million project. So they couldn't get it done, the money had to go back to the state, you try again. Finally, we got lucky. Senator Dames and Representative Torkelson have always been very supportive. They had let us know now is our time, and we were successful. We did get $7.3 million from the state, and the city of Redwood Falls provided a local match. They provided $900,000 for the project. There was 2 phases to the project. Phase 1 was the construction of a dewatering pond. That is roughly about 2.5 miles north of town, north of the lake where we're at. We bought a 140-acre parcel, and within that 110 acres is where all the sediment was piped and dewatered. So all the sediment would settle to the bottom, and it was just a clean water that would continue on and basically get returned back to the Minnesota River. The second phase was actually hiring of the dredging. We had 5 bids. J.F. Brennan, based out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, was the low bid. We had a kickoff on Earth Day, which was April 21st of 2022. They started dredging the next day, and they completed their work on October 15th of that same year. They came in with a hydraulic dredge. Essentially, it stirred up the sediments and went through a pipeline which went down to the end of the lake, up a township road, down Highway 19, up another county road, and then across. We didn't know what exactly they would find as far as trash, but luckily nothing. They didn't run into anything large that stopped them. Jim Deering, the Public Works Director for the city, he had a couple gentlemen come in his office. And if I remember right, they shut the door. They sat down and they said they had to confess their sins. At the courthouse, there used to be a pyramid of old cannonballs. And apparently when they were young, and this is, the very early days of Lake Redwood, there was a big slide that came off the bluff behind us. And these boys thought it'd be really fun to put those cannonballs down this slide and launch them into the river. Well, they didn't launch real well because they weighed so much. But when we mentioned that to the dredging company that this happened, and they're like, how big are these cannonballs? And I'm like, I don't know, 8, 10 inches. And that was a concern because they said that is something that could plug the dredge. Luckily, we didn't run into that. Part of the restrictions we had is that the dredge had to stay 25 feet back from the shoreline and 100 feet back from the dam. So we're assuming that because of the weight of them, they just sunk straight down. So they're probably along the shore or to the east side. A lot of the material that they found actually went through that pipeline and they found in the dewatering pond. It was just a hodgepodge of just fun items that they found. There was a gear shift knob off of the old manual transmissions, and all those items would be at the Redwood County Museum on display. We got the project done under budget. We will be spending the $7.3 million from the state, and I'll be returning roughly $200,000 back to the city of Redwood Falls. And that's going to go into a fund for long-term maintenance for the project. All in all, our goal was to remove 650,000 cubic yards. The total amount was 682,880 cubic yards is what we actually took out of here. If you take US Bank Stadium, the field there, that amount of sediment will go through the roof. There was no contaminants, there was no excessive chemicals in it. It is being seeded, so it'll have a permanent cover on it to prevent erosion. Now that we've got that lake restored, we're seeing a lot of families and a lot of children in the area, spending a lot of time at the park. So I think it's just been a real integral part to bringing Redwood Falls back together again.
Getting it back to recreational use, getting it back to seeing the boats, the paddle boards, the jet skis that we've seen on it has just been really amazing.
It's been a great first year after dredging. Folks that are reporting great catches on channel catfish, on walleye, on black crappie. We had a record number of fish houses out here this winter, and we expect that great angling to continue.
You get into these small communities, it's a struggle to compete. And this is just another little notch that might help when you're competing to bring somebody into town to have this asset, have this natural resource here.
We're just delighted again to see the reclamation of Lake Redwood completed, and knowing that it's going to really enhance the quality of life across the city, but also the region.
We're blessed in one sense in Redwood County to have a lot of stream resources between the Minnesota River and the Redwood River, but there's not a lot of lake resources. So get out and take advantage of this. Go for a ride in your boat, take the kayak out, enjoy the fall colors, enjoy the spring thaw, go see the wildlife. It's a beautiful place to be.
This is a beautiful elm cap oyster. It's not a true oyster mushroom. Pure white when it's young, and as it ages, it gets a little bit more tan in color. A telltale sign of an elm cap oyster, aside from it being just absolutely gorgeous, they grow out of wounds of trees, usually elm trees. If it's growing out of a wound in a tree and it looks like this, odds are it is an elm cap oyster. If you've never tried one, I would encourage you to try one, and a little butter and a little garlic and you can make anything taste good. The cap, it's smooth, and then on the underside you can see these gills, and they're a little bit forked. The stem has got the little scaly bits, and you'll know that you have an elm cap oyster mushroom. I have found them from August through like October.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org. Live Wide Open. Western Minnesota Prairie Waters. And the members of Pioneer PBS.